Can you all hear me and see me? If you have been listening and dialoguing over the past 2 days, you have heard our colleagues from around the world making the case for the action that needs to be realized for gender equality to be a reality in all our lives. Because we are done talking. This is the time to put our commitments in writing, to reach out to others, to imagine how we can do this work together, to enact policies that get rid of the barriers to equality, and most importantly, to put the funding in place without which none of our goodwill can be realized. I am pleased to announce today that we have 3 such bold commitments to share publicly for the first time, so that we can show you what we expect to bring to Paris. These are the Pathfinder commitments. So please join me as I welcome the representatives from the governments of Mexico and Canada, Women Moving Millions, Ford Foundation, and the Equality Fund to share with you what is possible when we think big. And big, we shall think. Excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome the government of Mexico, represented by Nadine Guzman.
Thank you so
Papers are showing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Switch off there.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Disculpen los problemas. Es urgente repensar el trabajo de cuidados hacia nuevos modelos que permitan reconocerlo, reducirlo y redistribuirlo, porque históricamente han recaído de manera desproporcionada sobre las mujeres y esta tarea debe ser un compromiso de todas y todos, de los gobiernos, de la iniciativa privada, las familias y comunidades. Es momento de impulsar alianzas poderosas que generen transformaciones en la forma en que las mujeres viven, trabajan y aprovechan su tiempo. Porque de las mujeres no solo dependen sus familias, sus hijos e hijas, sino el potencial económico de todos los países. Es tiempo de accionar estrategias rápidas y efectivas que ayuden a tomar conciencia sobre el autocuidado, el cuidado de las personas, los cuidados de las personas más vulnerables, el cuidado del planeta. Las mujeres necesitan ser liberadas de la excesiva carga de cuidados para potenciar sus oportunidades de desarrollo y autonomía económica de manera igualitaria, sobre todo aquellas que han estado en situaciones de exclusión. Entender que tener sistemas de cuidados es una inversión con réditos económicos y que es la sostenibilidad de la vida misma. Por ello, y en consonancia con los compromisos que ha asumido México de transformar la vida de las mujeres y las niñas, desde el Instituto Nacional de las Mujeres de México, en colaboración con ONU Mujeres, hacemos los siguientes compromisos en materia de cuidados. 1, consolidar la política nacional integral para un sistema nacional de cuidados. La segunda, impulsar la ejecución de la garantía del derecho de todas las personas a cuidar y ser cuidadas con base en el principio de corresponsabilidad sustentada en la legislación y que será muy próximamente un derecho incluido en nuestra Constitución. Tercero, concientizar sobre la redistribución de los cuidados para la transformación cultural de las familias, comunidades, de la iniciativa privada e instituciones de gobierno. Iniciamos estas acciones trabajando en la otra hoja de ruta que representa el Programa Nacional de Igualdad 2020-24, que articula estrategias con todas las instancias involucradas en hacerlo posible. Seguiremos en ello hasta que sea una realidad. Con este mismo espíritu y objetivo, el Instituto Nacional de las Mujeres de México, en estrecha alianza con ONU Mujeres, hacemos un llamado a la comunidad global y en particular a los gobiernos para sumarse a esta alianza por un sistema de cuidados que busca consolidar un sistema integral y progresivo. Proponemos como punto de partida, uno, llamar a las sociedades para que el trabajo sea colaborativo y corresponsable entre el Estado, las familias, las comunidades y empresas para aumentar los servicios de cuidados. Segundo, asegurar que las políticas públicas y las legislaciones consideren como prioridad la conciliación de la vida personal, familiar y laboral. Tres, sensibilizar a través de campañas para transformar los estereotipos que promueven la idea de que los cuidados corresponden solo a las mujeres. Cuarto, promover la inversión en infraestructura social y física para que los servicios atiendan las diversas necesidades en igualdad de condiciones. 5, para alcanzar la universalidad se necesita generar datos y evidencia con perspectiva de género de los servicios de cuidado para su seguimiento y evaluación. Sexto, crear bancos globales de buenas prácticas para unificarlas y avanzar más rápido. Invitamos a los países de todo el mundo a sumarse a esta alianza que impactará positivamente en la vida de las mujeres y contribuirá para disminuir las brechas de desigualdad, fomentando el crecimiento económico y el desarrollo de las comunidades. En este escenario pospandemia y ante la urgencia de acciones para la recuperación económica, es indispensable garantizar el derecho de las mujeres a trabajar en igualdad de condiciones que los hombres y mejorar sus condiciones económicas y las de su familia. De acuerdo con la ONU, la implementación de un sistema de cuidados eficiente, el empleo podría aumentar anualmente en México en casi 4% en los siguientes 5 años. En otras palabras, un sistema de cuidados eficaz podría generar más empleos y, por tanto, activar la economía en el contexto de crisis por COVID, lo cual nos conviene a todas y todos. La participación igualitaria en los cuidados garantiza los derechos en lo individual de mujeres y hombres, pero también en lo colectivo. Una estrategia para una recuperación económica más rápida y sólida. Además, teje los cimientos para la pacificación de espacios y comunidades. Los principios rectores de la alianza que impulsamos hoy son un bien común: la corresponsabilidad para la construcción de la paz, la inversión en un sistema de cuidados para el desarrollo económico y la inclusión de todas las formas de organización de los cuidados. La intención es que los resultados de esta alianza alcancen a todos los estratos sociales, a la diversidad de condiciones y a todos los estados del país. Ninguna mujer debe quedar fuera de esta política. En los próximos meses, rumbo a París, trabajaremos para establecer formas de coordinación que nos permitan cumplir estos compromisos e invitamos a todos los gobiernos, al sector privado y a las organizaciones de la sociedad civil y de las Naciones Unidas de todos los países a sumarse en esta alianza por los cuidados que, sin lugar a duda, transformará el futuro de las mujeres. Celebramos la reunión que tuvo lugar esta mañana entre el grupo informal de amigos que hicieron explícito su apoyo por la igualdad de género. Sus aportaciones serán muy importantes en los meses venideros para avanzar la agenda de género. Consideramos que esta alianza por los cuidados podría ser de su interés. Es la hora de las mujeres, es la década de las mujeres. La mitad de la población no puede quedarse atrás. Cada una de nuestras acciones está enfocada a alcanzar este objetivo. Y quiero agradecerle a mis colegas de ONU Mujeres el apoyo y el estar mano a mano en esta iniciativa. Belén, te doy el uso de la voz para compartir esta alegría.
Can I just highlight the fact that this commitment is the Mexican government and UN Women jointly, and therefore our country representative in Mexico, Belén, is here to add her own voice and to support the words of the Mexican government. Belén?
Thank you very much, Executive Director, President of Mujeres, Nadine Gassman. As the President has said, the distribution of domestic care work generates not only great inequalities between women and men, but also implies the intersection of other inequalities like social class, ethnic condition, and generational status, and also generating inequalities between women themselves. These inequalities are also seen in access to care services. Through COVID, we've seen the impacts that the lack of care services imply, and President of Mujeres in Mexico has been clear about the difference that having a national care system would make for countries. In this regard, I'm very happy to join as UN Women in Mexico, the government of Mexico under the leadership of Mujeres, to support the development of this alliance on care. UN Women will first accompany Mujeres and the government of Mexico in a close, active, and determined manner in their efforts to establish the foundations of a national care system, as well as a legislative and normative framework that supports it, guaranteeing the right to care and to be cared in Mexico. Second, we will support promoting the generation of data and evidence, including costing studies focused on investment return for the extension of care services to achieve their universality. This information will be crucial to guide the design, monitoring, and evaluation of the public policies put in place in Mexico for compliance with international standards. And finally, we will support strengthening cultural change actions to promote positive masculinities, conciliation, co-responsibility, and the eradication of stereotypes. We invite and are working with sister United Nations agencies to support Mexico in this very transformative and what we could say revolutionary engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mexico and UN Women. This is unity in action. And of course, we also thank the UN system in Mexico, which is also supporting the Mexican government. So UN offices all over the world, nudge, nudge. You can see how we are in action supporting our governments in this generation equality endeavor. And now I'm going to introduce Women Moving Millions and thank them for being in the global forefront in responding to the increased and often challenges that women face. Without any waste of time, I'm going to invite Sarah Hake-Bird, the Executive Director of Women Moving Millions Towards Generation Equality.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be on this virtual stage today, representing Women Moving Millions, a global philanthropic community of women who, since our founding, has catalyzed more than $800 million to achieve gender equality. More than a quarter century after the adoption of the most comprehensive framework for achieving women's empowerment and rights, we find ourselves at a critical juncture in the fight for gender equality. We have experienced a year like no other, In every country around the world, the pandemic has exacerbated the inequities that women and girls face every day, threatening their safety, health, and opportunity. The data is sobering, the toll staggering. We are living through the biggest crisis for women in our collective memory. The stakes have never been higher. As we look to the future, we are being called upon to reimagine a world that is more just and equitable. A world in which one person's security isn't based on another's vulnerability. A world where the dignity of all human beings is recognized and celebrated. The opportunity before us is tremendous. We must meet this moment head on with the spirit of possibility and commitment that each and every participant brought to this historic gathering. Building a more gender equal and inclusive world will require a strong and resilient movement. And movements require capital to breathe, to innovate, to take bold risks, and to scale. Yet our work, this historic fight for equality, remains chronically under-resourced. That is why I'm humbled to share today on this global stage Women Moving Millions' commitment to mobilize a minimum of $100 million in resources to ensure the leaders and activists on the front lines of the movement for gender equality have the capital they need to carry this forum's bold feminist agenda forward. With this commitment, we are standing up so equality can step forward. Because we cannot achieve gender equality when the funding doesn't reflect the disproportionate burden women and girls face. Because we cannot confront the regressive impacts of this crisis without investing in women and girls as leaders in our recovery and rebuilding. With proper funding, we can ensure equal rights, equal pay, and equal power. With investment, movement leaders can address the structural and cultural barriers to realizing equality that continues to affect the lives and futures of millions of women and girls globally. Through this campaign, we are calling on the private sector to join us in this pursuit. Commit to making your own game-changing investment in gender equality. The future depends upon it. Together, we can be a catalyst for collective action and change. Together, we can give bold to get equal. Join us. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much to Women Moving Millions, who with this bold commitment to mobilize at a minimum of $100 million are showing us what is possible with collective action. Women Moving Millions is a hybrid of private sector and philanthropy. So this is a challenge to philanthropists and to private sector. We are doing a TikTok here and repeating and showing what can be done. You are bringing philanthropy to new edges of leadership, and I hope many others are inspired by your example. We look forward to seeing how far you will be when we get to Paris, and I have no doubt that you've got this. So thank you very much. And next, we will now have Theo Sowa, the co-chair of the Equality Fund Board of Directors, Nicolette Naylor, International Director of the Gender, Race, and Ethnic Justice Program of the Ford Foundation, and the Honorable Karina Gold, Minister of International Development for the Government of Canada, also to show us what we're talking about in this new era of unity in action. Please take it away, Equality Fund, Ford Foundation, and Canada.
Thank you so much, Phumzile. I'm delighted to be here today as the co-chair of the Equality Fund. The Equality Fund is built by feminists for feminists. It unites a feminist approach with gender lens investing, bold government funding, and powerful multi-sector philanthropy to shift power and resources to women's rights organizations and movements. And as Sarah just said, we really need that to happen. If we look back at Beijing and the agenda that was articulated and take a line to now in Mexico, what we can see is that feminists and women's rights activists and organizations have been at the forefront of change, whether we're looking at HIV/AIDS, Ebola, responses to violence against women, whether we're looking at the push for economic, social, and political justice. Feminist activists have been and continue to be at the forefront of struggle, of change, and of impact. And yet, we also see that a line can be drawn from Beijing to Mexico that shows the consistent underfunding of women's rights activism. We need to take this moment in time where COVID has changed the way our systems work, where there has been a global outcry for racial justice, gender justice, social, economic, and political justice. We need to look now at how we fund the people and the organizations and the movements that make transformation happen. And we have no excuse for the pitiful amount of money that has been going, whether from government development assistance, philanthropic activism, private sector, or individuals. There is no excuse for the limited amount of money that have gone to those transformational actors. We have evidence of all kinds of platforms, women's rights organizations that can be funded directly, financial platforms established by women's funds nationally, regionally, and globally that can get money to the smallest as well as the largest of women's rights organizations. Whether we're talking about Leading from the South, Women's Voice in Leadership, the Count Me In collaboration, or the Women's Fund collaborative led by Prospera, or talking about the Equality Fund. We know that feminist platforms for getting money to feminist activism exist. So let's make use of this moment. Let's seriously move beyond the rhetoric. Let's put our money where our mouths are, put our money where the evidence is that shows us that together with the appropriate funding and the appropriate action and feminist approaches, we can make the transformation we've been fighting for since Beijing. Thank you. And Nicolette, I hand over to you.
Unity in action. Nicolette, are you there?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Phumzile, and thank you, Theo. The time is now for new and better partnerships. COVID has compelled us to work hand in hand to address global challenges. We are at a tipping point. This is the moment for all of us to demonstrate leadership to the world. Leadership that is feminist, brave, collaborative, and sustainable. Generation equality has shown us that a transformative approach to partnership is possible. One that brings governments, bilateral and multilateral donors, the private sector, feminist movements, and philanthropy to the table to work together and be bold. We also know, as Theo has said, that feminist movements and the work to advance women's rights needs more and better financial and political support. So today, Ford Foundation is pleased to commit $15 million to the Equality Fund, a sustainable global fund for gender equality. The diversity of the partnerships under the Equality Fund is unprecedented. Launched in 2019 with a $300 million contribution from the Government of Canada It's designed to offer governments, philanthropists, and impact investors the opportunity to partner with feminists to mobilize and multiply resources and impact in a more sustainable way. We are excited about this partnership with the Government of Canada and the Equality Fund because it is feminist at its core, sustainable in its strategies, and designed to scale. This is a model that we hope will be embraced and supported by all of you. So we invite you to join us because it's important to invest in institutionalized mechanisms for partnership that can actually bring additional resources to the sector. And we know that these partnership models need to be feminist, intersectional, and truly global. We are also proud to announce that we are working with women's organizations and women's funds, the governments of Canada and Netherlands, and private philanthropy to explore the establishment of a global alliance for sustainable feminist movements. This global alliance will seek to drive coordinated multi-sector efforts and will provide a dedicated space for sustaining the dialogue between feminist organizations, bilateral and multilateral funders, private philanthropy, and women's funds, so that together we may address the systemic challenges in the feminist funding ecosystem. The Mexico Forum has given us momentum to harness more and better political leadership and financial resources to support feminist movements. The time to act is now. So please join us on this journey between now and Paris so that we may collectively demonstrate the power of feminist leadership to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolette. We now hand over to Canada, and we're hoping that everybody is thinking about what they will bring to Paris. Over to you, Canada.
Great, thank you so much, Phumzile, and thank you very much to the Government of Mexico for hosting us here today. I want to start off by saying that Theo is right. Feminist movements and organizations are best placed to advance the hard work of achieving gender equality, and yet they are under-recognized and under-resourced. We must be creative and use a diversity of feminist funding mechanisms to channel resources to the full ecosystem of feminist movements. There are already examples to follow. The Netherlands has paved the way with its inspiring initiatives in support of women's rights organizations, such as Leading from the South. And there is the Equality Fund. We are absolutely thrilled with the Ford Foundation's contribution. Nicolette, thank you for your support. As a leading foundation dedicated to advancing social justice, your contribution to the Equality Fund sends a strong message to all of us. Donors have choices. Canada was very proud to launch the Equality Fund to directly support women's rights organizations and movements in the Global South. But we need more and deeper partnerships to support the women's organizations, funds, and movements that are making a difference in their communities. And this is why we are so excited about the idea of a global alliance to leverage more and better funding for feminist movements and organizations. This is an idea that has been in the making between women's rights organizations, foundations, women's funds, and donors for quite some time. Harnessing the energy and momentum of Generation Equality Forum is the perfect time to make this happen. We must build this together. Feminist movements, women's rights organizations, governments, philanthropic foundations, and the private sector. We must unlock new resources and new donors to support the feminist funding ecosystem. We are so excited about the launching of the process of building a global alliance and the continued support of the Equality Fund. And again, thank you to the Ford Foundation for their leadership. We hope funding for women's rights organizations will also be cross-cutting across all the priority areas of the Generation Equality Forum. One of the areas of the GEF that has received so much needed attention during this meeting is the need for civil society and women's rights organizations to prevent and address sexual and gender-based violence and respond to the needs of survivors, particularly when we know that GBV has increased in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Canada is proud to announce an additional $10 million for global grant making dedicated to eradicating all forms of violence against women and girls. This funding will allow the scaling up of support for women's and grassroots organizations to prevent and address gender-based violence through the UN Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women. We are energized and committed to ensuring that grassroots organizations are supported to advance gender equality across all sectors. And we want others to join us. We're calling on you to commit to supporting women's funds and organizations. We are inviting you to start having the hard but inspiring conversations about what a global alliance for sustainable funding for feminist movements and organizations could look like. Please join us on this journey. We look forward to seeing what we can all achieve on the road to Paris.
Thank you, Canada. Thank you, Ford Foundation. Thank you, Equality Now, for that announcement. We are on our road to Paris, and it is paved with dollars. Now I'm going to announce the last commitment that we are making in profiling in Mexico. And this is from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And I will make the announcement on their behalf. And this is in addition to what they have already committed to generation equality. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is announcing $50,000 to 10 youth organizations, which will be a total of $500,000 to support their advocacy for bold and ambitious commitments that will be announced in Paris. They are screening 500 applicants from young people who are presenting a diverse and very interesting, clear ideas of advocacy that will have an impact. And of course, this commitment that we're announcing so that young people must live here knowing that they are being supported and encouraged is a foundation of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that is on top of the commitment they have made, the commitment that has made it possible for us to prepare for generation equality, to have communication, to support different parts of our system, its headquarters and around the world, and many civil society organizations. And they are also a leader in the coalitions. So we have more to smile about, but we thank them for giving us this teaser in order to encourage young people whose time it is now. So thank you very much. This brings us to the end of the announcements and commitments that are being made on the road to Paris. We are now firmly on our way to Paris. I hope, Delphine, you're waiting for us there. Thank you. Over to Sarah. Sarah Hendrickson.
Thank you so much, Executive Director Phumzile, and also thank you to everyone who joined today's exciting announcements. We're absolutely thrilled by the announcement from the Government of Mexico in partnership with UN Women to advance and transform the care economy. We're likewise thrilled and delighted by the announcement from Women Moving Millions, Sarah Hackey-Bird, to drive a minimum of $100 million new dollars towards women's movements, organizations, and across all 6 action coalitions. And likewise, thrilled across all of us for the announcement by the conglomerate of the Ford Foundation, as well as the Government of Canada, alongside alongside our partners with the Equality Fund to drive new financing into women's rights organizations, funds, and movements. Together, we are driving new change on the action coalitions and generation equality. And together, we will advance concrete change and make a difference in the pathway to Paris. And with this session is ended, and we invite you to the next session to our closing. Thank you all.
So how much